In the next edition of It's About Money, my guest will be Bleu Cease of Rochester Contemporary Arts Center. Be sure to join us. I'm Nannette Nokan. It's About Money. Hello and welcome to another edition of It's About Money. I'm Nannette Nokan and thank you for joining us. I'm delighted to have as our guest Bleu Cease of Rochester Contemporary. He's joined us before, but I want to ask him again because of a very successful campaign that he has done. Welcome, Bleu.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks again. So for our audience who didn't catch our show a couple years ago, tell me a little bit about RoCo.
The organization was founded in 1977 as the Pyramid Arts Center, and it started as a very small cooperative art gallery, and it moved around to a few different locations in the 80s and the 90s. And it was sort of part of a movement around the country of artist spaces that popped up. And so there's a really long, nice, rich history. The organization moved to our current location on East Avenue in 2001. And we do all kinds of different exhibitions. We team up with other partner organizations. We typically only show younger, living artists, but we do try to exhibit all kinds of different expressions, all kinds of different cultural projects that might address different issues that are relevant today. And we try to kind of sample what's happening in the broader contemporary art world.
Got it. So just for our viewers, a clarification, Rochester Contemporary is a non-for-profit organization, right?
Yes, we basically are a small museum. However, we don't have a collection. So we're a non-collecting museum. This is a classification of organizations. And we bring in the artwork that we're exhibiting at a certain time. And that exhibition is really our identity for that period, for that 2-month period. Then when that period is over, we take that exhibition down and put up a new show. So really our identity changes along with the particular exhibition. So we don't have any consistent exhibits that are there for years and years on end. It's a changing exhibition at all times.
But then you have some sort of format though, right?
Yes.
You have the state of the city that
Yes,
kicks
exactly.
off the fall.
Yeah, so regarding the programming structure, we have a few I call them habits, really.
Okay.
And they're general ideas, or in some cases, structures that we might revisit the same time each year, or every 2 years, or every 3 years, or something of that calendar. And one is called Makers and Mentors. And this is a time where we usually focus on one late career artist from the region who's had a significant impact on other artists, both as an artist and also as a mentor. Perhaps they taught for many years at one of the local universities or colleges. And so each year we try to bring that late career artist back together to exhibit with their former students. And the exhibitions across the years might take different formats. One year it might be 3 former students. This coming year it will be 7 former students from all around the world, in fact. So that's one of those projects that we revisit each year. The artworks are always very different. The ideas that are being discussed around the artworks are always very different. And in fact, the collaborating university connection is always different. So we have a few other traditions. We do an annual members exhibition, which is an opportunity for anyone to exhibit one artwork. And then, of course, our big crowd pleaser is the 6x6 exhibition, which has just been a phenomenal success in so many different ways. This is the exhibition where people mail us small square artworks from all around the globe. And last year we had well over 50 countries represented and about 6,000 artworks. So I could go on and talk about that exhibition, but it's a really fun, egalitarian, community-based project.
Yeah, it's about the timing of the jazz festival, so you also get to see a lot of other audience that may not have come down. It opens their, awareness of having a contemporary art museum downtown. That's great. That's wonderful. Now you mentioned the members show, so that's an annual program, and anybody can really exhibit. But part of how RoCo exists is because of memberships, right?
Right.
So would you talk about that a bit?
Yeah, like many nonprofits, we have different membership levels which help to sustain the organization, and we have a number of people who've been a member of RoCo and our predecessor pyramid for 25, 30 years. Amazing, absolutely amazing. And we have a really strong membership base. We always work to grow that and increase that, or encourage people to become a higher level of member or something like that. But the bottom line is that we have a really long history of people making a small contribution, and many of them to help to support the organization through all of our programs. And the members exhibition is a time where we thank them. Typically this is a holiday season exhibition, and it happens in December and January. And any member, whether they're a professional artist, whether they're a hobbyist, or maybe even a high school student whose parents are members of RoCo, they might put in one artwork each, and it's this amazing eclectic sampling of all the visual art in the region. So it's a really fun project. We give out a number of awards. Those awards are chosen by much larger organizations like the Eastman House and the Memorial Art Gallery. And then certain donors might want to make a donation to support a younger artist. So they will work with me to make the selection of an artist to give a cash prize to. So we've really worked over the years to build the award structure surrounding that exhibition to make it even more beneficial and more exciting and more engaging for people to be involved with.
That's great. That's great. And as members, they do pay, like you said, the membership fee.
Sure.
And when we look at the funding for Rochester Contemporary, and later we'll talk about the future fund, because that's a big deal. I think it's such a successful program. It is. But what other sources of revenue outside of the capital campaign is available to sustain the programming and the existence of Rochester Contemporary?
Well, roughly, membership is about 15% of our budget, and we also have sponsors for every exhibition. An organization or an individual may be very sympathetic to a certain idea or a certain artist or a certain medium, so we encourage those people to sponsor an exhibition. It's a standard, not-for-profit operating approach. So that's probably roughly another 15 to 20% of our budget. We have a number of other fundraisers throughout the year. 6x6 is a significant part of our budget as well, roughly another 20% of our budget right there. So in terms of talking about our budget, I could also go on and on about that. I think a part of our strength right now is that our budget is really diversified. If you were looking at the pie chart, there's nothing larger. No piece of the pie is larger than 15 to 20%.
Yes.
So in a sense, what that means is that it's a lot of work because each of those pieces of pie takes a lot of effort. However, it also means that one of those pieces of pie is not particularly vulnerable to going away without reason or with surprise. We're not going to all of a sudden lose 50% of our funding because of one grant.
Sure.
Of course, we would love to have a grant that were 50% of our budget, but that also does open an organization up to a certain insecurity.
Sure, yeah, and definitely. And you also have actually received a number of grants from private endowments and...
Absolutely, and grants are another roughly 10 to 15% of our budget.
I see, great. And what's nice is, what is your official title? Because you're really everything.
I'm the executive director and curator.
Okay, yeah, which you wear so many hats. I mean, you're just so talented, but yet you also bring in a lot of people to help you, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you've got a board, of course,
yes,
and you've got a cadre of volunteers.
Yes, yeah, and we have an amazing internship program, and our interns, this is the most serious professional internship program, and I'm so proud of it and so excited to work with our interns. They have gone on to careers at major public art organizations in Manhattan. They've gone on to work for other galleries in New York. We've hired some after their internship period. And that's, that process of being engaged with such a specific industry like contemporary art, small nonprofit contemporary art, it's so specialized for individuals who are maybe after undergrad, before grad school. They really are pretty sure they want to be involved with arts administration. We've been able to build this unique situation where they can get involved and learn really all there is to learn about running RoCo. And after a period of time of being there, they're managing programs, and they're an integral part of our success and our growth and our operations. So that's huge. And then, as you mentioned, we have a number of other volunteers who come in maybe once a year for a certain project. We have a ton of people who love to help out with 6x6. Installing it is sort of like a barn raising of sorts, or a production line. And so there are probably 50 people who come in each year just to help with the installation of 6x6. And that's really wonderful. It's very meaningful for us to see those people every year annually, but it's also just important that they come back and they know what they care about, and we know that they're going to be responsible, they're going to show up because they're there for the project that they really connect with.
That's great. I mean, it sounds like there's something for a lot of people, you know, that especially 6x6, that brings in so many different people, from volunteers to patrons.
Yeah, and I think you make a good point about that, and that's something I'm always trying to strive for. I'm always trying to strive for diversity across a timeline of, say, 3 years of programming. If we were to show large abstract paintings for 5 exhibitions in a row, that might satisfy the overall title of us being a contemporary art center. However, it really would not satisfy our audiences. It would not diversify our audiences. So maybe that's a bad example, but really, you know, what I'm trying to point out is that across a long period of time, we want to both show diversity in who we exhibit, who we attract, what ideas our exhibitions are addressing, and sort of the overall tone of the institution. So we want to be able to continue to grow. Say during this period, we want to grow in this direction. Maybe the next 2 months we want to grow in this direction. Maybe the next 2 months after that we want to, you know, expand the number of participating organizations from around the world. For example, during 6x6, we are engaged with the local community, but we're primarily focused on exposing people all around the world to such a small organization. So we kind of are very focused outwardly. And this year we really want to continue to grow that number of countries. So of course we're really focusing on the African continent, and we want to attract a lot more participation from African countries, and that's an amazing challenge for a small organization like us. And it's really cool when packages come in from South Africa. It's amazing, it's phenomenal. And we just got a package in from Iceland, and we'd never had a contribution come from that country before. So we try to grow in different directions, in different ways at different times.
To me, I love the event because of the community participation in so many different fronts. Like you said, the artists are from all over, the buyers, you know, the donors. It's just, I just think it's great. I've written to a couple of the artists who've donated, and kind of pleasantly surprised that somebody has taken the time, because I think somebody who lives in South Africa or Germany sends artwork for the benefit of Rochester, New York is a wonderful thing, you know, and of course they get to exhibit their art in New York State, which maybe some of them have never visited, you know. So I think that's really cool. So.
Yeah, it's so generous, and there's a point that I think is becoming increasingly interesting through that exhibition. These people all around the world, thousands of them, are participating in this show, and they're not just going to our website and clicking on something and engaging with us, you know, through social media. They're not just clicking like or sending us an email or something like that, which so much of our communication today happens that way. And we might be able to say, yes, 3,000 people clicked like on our image, but that would be a totally different kind of engagement. This is so meaningful that these people in Iceland, who we've never met, they're sitting down and they're making something with their hands, and they're packaging it up and shipping it off to us. It's just a whole other level of engagement, and it's so, in a way, it's very off-trend.
Yeah, that's great. I love that you're a trailblazer. We'll take a quick break, and just our guest right is Bleu Cease, who is with Rochester Contemporary, and he's telling us about the great things that RoCo does. And when we come back, we'll talk about the Future Fund and some of the provocative programming that he's done. We'll be right back. And we're back. It's About Money. I'm Nannette Nokan, and my guest is Bleu Cease, and he's the Executive Director and Curator at Rochester Contemporary. Thanks again for being here, Bleu.
Thank you.
So I'm really excited to talk about the success and what of Future Fund. Tell us what that's about, because it's been a very successful fundraising capital campaign for Rochester Contemporary.
Yeah. So 2 years ago, well, first, after many years of renting our building, we finally purchased this building. So that was in 2012, and part of purchasing it was raising some initial funds for a down payment, and then kicking off a small capital campaign to raise the balance of those funds, in addition to money needed to make a few building improvements and repairs. And so this was the biggest fundraising effort that our organization has ever undertaken. And it's been a phenomenal success. We planned the project to run for 5 years, and we would raise the funds needed to pay off the building in 5 years, and then we would achieve outright ownership on our 40th anniversary, which is 2017. And it's been really, really fun to go through this process. First of all, to do the negotiation and the purchase, and then the planning of the fundraising, and meeting with people and talking to them and telling the story, telling the history, describing what an important step this is for our organization. The purchase of our building and the transition from renting a facility to a smaller mortgage for a period of time, and then outright ownership, has a significant impact on our operating budget, and it allows us to put our funds toward our programming, toward more mission-related activity. So it really has been a phenomenal success, and a number of people, many people, in fact, roughly 400 people, stepped up to contribute small amounts and large amounts. And we finished our capital campaign, meaning we have pledges and contributions totaling our goal 3 years early, 3 years before our set deadline for this. So now, once the pledges will continue to come in for the next 3 years, and then in December of 2017, we will prepay our mortgage, and we will burn the note, and we'll own the building outright. And it's such a huge step for a small organization like us to, one, know that we're safe and secure in our building, two, that we're reducing our expenses, and three, that we've made some improvements to it during this whole process as well. We installed a new heating system. We've raised the funds to replace the roof, which, as anyone knows, those are big expenses for a building like ours.
And actually, so you had some creative ways to do that, right? Tell me how the most creative way, I think.
Yeah, the one part of this was to plan out our mortgage payment, which we would make these payments for 5 years, and then, along with other funds raised, as I said, we would then prepay our mortgage. But in articulating the promotion of this, it became very clear that our mortgage payment was actually a very reasonable number, and it was not far off from what the average family in this country, in fact, pays for their mortgage. So it just dawned on me that that number was actually somewhat approachable and super concrete. Anyone can relate to the fact that they have either a monthly rent bill or a monthly mortgage payment. And so what we did is we promoted a sponsorship program for that specific number of our monthly mortgage payment, and we had great success with it. So for the 60 payments, 5 years times 12 months, we had 40% of those. We have commitments for people to sponsor 40% of all of those payments, and so they make a contribution to us, and then we set that money aside. We put the equal amount aside for the prepayment of the mortgage, and their contribution goes toward that monthly expense. So it's just been a very unique thing. It's gotten a lot of attention because we're pushing out a quirky number. It's $1,387.94, and so it's down to the cents, and we promote the exact number. And yeah, it's really resonated. A number of other organizations have come to us saying, "Hey, can we use that idea? We like that. Too bad we didn't think of that." Or, it's been kind of a funny conversation with other organizations as well. So,
but it's great. It's a contemporary way of true to the name. Yeah.
And one of my big goals with this project was just to be super direct and transparent with it. I think everyone who is in touch with their particular charity or wherever their sympathies and interests lie, there are very noble and very important causes. And I think many of us are aware of many organizations, and of course we wanted to distinguish ourselves in a way that made it very clear what we were trying to achieve and told the story of our recent history and our success, and made it very easy for people to get involved. Another way for people to be a part of this capital campaign was to donate older artworks that maybe they don't have room for in their home or their style has changed. They've donated those artworks to us, and then we sell them inexpensively as a small ongoing part of this campaign. And we sold hundreds of artworks that way.
Mm-hmm. So you know that someone who is unloading their artwork is not just putting it somewhere that no one would appreciate it. Like, you could donate to a lot of other places, but then it's just nicer when other art lovers can appreciate art that's donated by others, and then it benefits RoCo. So that's great. That's fantastic. How important is it to own a building? I mean, you mentioned earlier about controlling your overhead, right? It contributes to the bottom line.
I think those parts are very important. You know, when making this decision, so I've been at the organization for nearly 8 years, and it was clear to me when I started within a couple months that something had to change with our ownership/occupancy situation. And I think we were very open in our planning and our considering of the situation. We were very open to a long-term lease and, you know, a number of other options that might have come up. But ultimately, we weren't searching for just the concept of ownership for ownership's sake. It just made sense in the long run to purchase. We looked at a lot of different options and different calculations with it. So that's sort of the dollars and cents of it. But the image aspect of this and sort of the soft parts of the conversation are that, yes, absolutely, you own your destiny, you own the organization's future, and you're there, and it's secure, and it's stable. And in this case, we had been renting the building for so long, we knew the building very well. Mm-hmm. So there were not big question marks looming or things like that. So it really felt like almost a sigh of relief. There was sort of a concern for a number of years that we may get priced out of the neighborhood. And those who are interested in or aware of the history of, say, for example, Lower Manhattan, or other art communities in other metropolitan areas around the country, there's a history of art institutions and galleries and artists in their studios being a part of changing neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. They often move in when rents are very low, mm-hmm. and are part of making a neighborhood more interesting, more engaging, more palatable, and sometimes that fits into this concept of gentrification. And this is not often a positive spin on this, not a positive reading on this trend, but it's undeniable that artists and art communities are part of transitioning cities. And what sometimes happens in those situations, and we know of one very recently in Toronto, where an organization our size was a part of helping to build a whole gallery neighborhood. And then as rents increased and there was more development in those neighborhoods, that organization was simply priced out of the neighborhood, and now they needed to move. They don't know what they're doing.
So, how unfortunate, yeah.
So in that way, it feels very safe and secure to be in the neighborhood that we've been a part of, helping to change, a small part, but that we're there to stay. And now we can focus on our programming. We can focus on refining our image and refining our physical facility.
Yeah, very good. So I want to end our interview with most recent exhibition that you had, which is quite provocative, but really engaged a lot of members of the community, and that's Question Bridge. Because even after the exhibit, there are really still some ongoing things because of documented interviews and stuff like that. Would you talk about Question Bridge?
Yeah, Question Bridge is this national project where 4 artists traveled around the country interviewing black men. And they had a very simple structure for this, where they would interview one black man, and he would ask questions. And then for the next interview subject, they would play those previously asked questions, and then the following subject would answer those questions. So it gave them video footage of both question and answer, all coming from the subjects. Mm-hmm. And over a long period of time, they created this amazing archive of question and answer dialogue. And then they, through very savvy and very smart video editing, pieced together this multi-channel conversation where one man asks a question on screen and then multiple different men answer it. And the beauty of this project and the profound, somewhat provocative, but really just profound and human aspect of this exhibition is that it shows the diversity of us sometimes and often narrowly defined demographic. Mm-hmm. There are, black men asking questions about surfing. There were other men asking questions about growing up without a father. There were other questions about big general human questions. How did you know when you met the woman you should marry? And then 5 different men of all different backgrounds, all different life situations, answering those questions. And the project has a certain neutrality to it. And we basically just presented it, we dedicated the whole gallery to this video loop, in addition to a few design aspects. And it just played in the gallery. It's a 3-hour video, and it just played over and over for 2 months. And it was incredibly well received. We had a number of very solid partnerships through this. We worked with the RCTV and the city of Rochester and a number of other foundations and organizations. So first of all, to promote the exhibition. And I'm so happy to report that it was actually one of our most well-attended exhibitions ever, which I think is amazing for it to be so different in a sense from what we do. Mm-hmm. But I think it's also a statement of the power of this project, and anyone can watch it online. Mm-hmm. So I would encourage anyone to do that. The other part of this exhibition program was a whole series of discussions that we programmed that were sort of instigated by the video content, but not limited to the very questions and answers that it contained. There were discussions about the visual arts. There were discussions about education. There were discussions about politics. There were discussions about media. There was a very important panel organized by the Democrat and Chronicle, which basically looked at the representation of black men in local media. So they're all media professionals discussing this very critical issue. So it was a very important project, and in a sense, I think somewhat surprising to some of our audiences and some of our new audiences, because there was there was no canvas, there was no sculpture, there was nothing to purchase and hang over your sofa, which most people who are familiar with us know that's not our real focus. But if you have a basic understanding of what contemporary art is and don't know RoCo, perhaps you would be surprised to see that it's just one big video installation, and it's all about relevant discussions and very important topics. So it was a really great program.
It's been an exciting program here. I thank you for sharing so much, and congratulations on Future Fund.
Thank you.
I think that's an excellent idea, and I'm glad that people are copying it, much like 6x6. So very good. Thank you, Bleu. Appreciate it. And thank you, our audience, for joining us. Bleu Cease was our guest, Executive Director at Rochester Contemporary, who is also the curator there. My name is Nannette Nokan. It's About Money, and until next time.